Hello everyone, I am Ionuț Bonoiu. We start sharply at 14-hour CET. I'm Ionuț Bonoiu and I welcome everyone to Digital Hour of Power, co-creating for the new reality. We have a great lineup today, we have great presentation today, and I will let you know all the details in a while. But before that, as the great Simon Sinek said, let's start with the why. Why this event? This idea behind this event was actually pretty simple and straightforward. Co-creating for the new reality was specially created for companies actively trying to adapt to the new reality using the latest technology. Why technology? And I will provide you with just a couple of short articles from our Forbes network, from our worldwide Forbes network. Just last week, I'm sure you all remember, Forbes US reported that the world's richest person, Jeff Bezos, became actually the first person to reach $200 billion fortune. Actually, what happened is that, fueled by the change in consumer habits as a result of the current pandemic, Amazon stock, which is a technology company, is up nearly 80% since the beginning of the year, when Bezos' net worth was roughly around $115 billion. Also, in Forbes Brazil, Jorge Paulo Lemann, which is the second richest Brazilian, who has a controlling stake in the world's largest brewer, I'm sure you all knew, especially the guys, AB InBev, said that in a few years, the largest Brazilian companies will be technology companies. Speaking with Forbes Brazil about the skills needed to succeed in this time, he said that in the past, we were looking for people with a knife in their teeth and blood in their eyes. Now, in addition, they need to understand technology. So the guy who's not familiar with technology is already late at the table. Another story from Forbes Spain. Marcelino Oreja, the CEO of Enagas. Enagas is Spain's natural gas transmission distribution company, so a rather, let's say, old style company, highlighted for Forbes Spain that the two fundamental axes for Enagas in the current context are innovation and digitization. Actually, the company also has a corporate entrepreneurship and open innovation program, and as a result, 7 startups have been set up, and support has been provided for 4 external ones. And the last, let's say, short info article about from our Forbes network. In Forbes Romania, Iulian Stanciu, the CEO of EMAG, which is a Romanian unicorn actually owned by Naspers, by the giant Naspers, said that IT, which already has 6% of the country's GDP, can play the role of industry ambassador for Romania, since the country already has, and we see that ourselves, the fastest internet in Europe, and the fiber optic network is extended. So actually, he said that we don't have a well-defined country brand, and IT and technology can be a great idea. So this is the reason we specially designed this event for the new reality, to try to support companies and offering trends in the digital area. So with no further ado, I invite, beside myself on our virtual stage, Bogdan Galushka, Director of Business Development, Digital Transformation Services, Stefanini EMEA. Bogdan is actually leading Stefanini's business development unit for innovative application services across Europe, consulting and supporting Stefanini's customers to transform their businesses through cloud adoption and process digitalization. Welcome, Bogdan.
Hi, Ionuț. Hi, everyone. Thank you very much for the introduction, Ionuț. First of all, I'd like to thank everyone that has joined this event. I'm sure there's, we'll have a lot to share with you. I guess over the last months, it's been we've learned a lot, we've adapted a lot. It's been a year that has been totally unexpected for all of us. I think that more than ever we had to work with our partners, work with internally and externally in all possible ways to innovate. More often than not, we are now challenged to go deeper, to address some of the fundamentals in our business models in order to continue to be successful. I guess we started the year, with a goal, just to give you an example, to have about 20% of our EMEA workforce working from home, and 20% was seemed to us like a very ambitious goal, and now we've like everybody else, everybody's working from home. So I guess we can do a lot more than we plan sometimes, and if we're ambitious and we strive hard, I think that in the end everything will be fine after this COVID and period. Lastly, I will rejoin you in one of the sessions later on at the panel. So I encourage you throughout the sessions, while you listen to the speakers, please submit your questions, and we will definitely address them later on. That having said, thank you very much, Jonas.
Thank you, Bogdan. So it seems that you overdone it, right? In terms of the percentage from the work from home, you overdone it. You should overdo it in the rest of the areas. So
yeah, well, we had to, and moreover, more than that, we had to help our customers, help our partners. So we were in the position where we had to drive this this fundamental change and do it in the shortest time possible and in a secure way.
Thank you, Bogdan. I will kindly ask Alex Cernătescu to join me. Alex is currently CEO, co-founder, and global head of strategy at Stefanini Infinite. He has over 18 years of experience in strategy, consultancy, digital advertising, digital transformation, innovation, software and technology. And actually, the last 13 years of his career are a successful entrepreneurial story by co-founding Infinite Agency together with his brother Andrei in 2007. And this became one of the largest digital agency in Romania and one of the fastest growing in Europe. And that's the reason behind last year's joint venture with Stefanini, thus creating the brand new Stefanini Infinite, which is now serving clients in more than 50 countries. And he will join us from Maldives Islands, or where are you now?
Well, I'm everywhere and nowhere at the same time, which is the reality we are all going through lately because of the virtualization of the workplace, like Bogdan was saying. I'm gonna keep it very short about the reason behind this event that we co-created with you guys. The last few months of our lives were an incredible learning experience for all of us. And I only want to underline one idea. First, we learned how small we are, all of us. We learned how small and insignificant we are. We were scared, locked up in our houses. We saw the world crumbling in front of us. So we learned we were smaller than we thought. After that, in the same amount of time, we started noticing, and I personally saw a lot of examples that, let's say, brought back my confidence, because I also learned how big we are as humanity, how we started to adapt, how we started okay, a lot of the bad things came out with the situation, but a lot of the good in all of us came out. So at the same time, we learned how small we are and how big we are if we all work together past the challenges that life throws at us. The reason for this event is that we are all exploring here. This is a totally new reality. Nobody has the answer to how we are supposed to cope with it. Nobody can say, I have a crystal ball and this is what's going to happen. What we can do is to try to work closer and closer, learn from each other, be as open as possible, and share. Because I'm sure that the new economy will be based on sharing like in no time before in the history of humanity. And this whole event, the Digital Hour of Power, is all about sharing. One last idea that I want to transmit. I want to thank all the participants that we have here in this event. We have people who registered for more than 16 different countries. Would you think this event was possible if we did it in a physical way? Do you think we would have had guests from 16 countries at our event? I don't think so. So I choose to also look at the positive sides with all the changes in our lives lately. Thank you, Jonas.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you, guys. And as I said before, we have a great lineup. Stay with us until the end. Please provide us with your question. We will have a panel, a discussion panel later on, and just a snapshot of our great lineup. We will have Mark Yates with us, which is IDC Europe Research Director, which Mark brings more than 20 years experience to his role as a digital transformation analyst. He helps translate the tenets of digital transformation and customer experience into practical strategies and action, which he helps identifies emerging business models that can upend cash cows and generate new revenue streams. And boy, do we need new revenue streams these times. We will have with us Gustavo Zeidan, VP Information Security at Sage. Gustavo has over 20 years experience across a range of technologies and industries with emphasis on security strategy, management, architecture, and security protocol. He worked in senior management position for Atos, Visa Europe, EY, and Sage Group. We also have with us Hugo Neumorni. Is the president and co-founder of the CIO Council, the association of the CIOs from Romania. He is also the chairman of the Euro CIO, the European Association of CIOs, having an extensive experience in the cybersecurity field and more than 15 years in the industrial environment. And he has a very charismatic way of presenting. I had the pleasure of having him as a guest at one of our schools, let's say open sessions. You already know Bogdan Galushka, you already know Alex Cernătescu. We will also have a modern workplace session next with Peter Kin and Ionuț Șerdean, which are responsible for the digital workplace solution for Stefanini. And at the end, we will have a big and open Q&A session based on your comments until then. So feel free to send us your question, and I will now pass the floor to my colleague Andreea Guțu, who will introduce the next speakers.
Thank you, Ionuț. Hi to everyone. So how Ionuț said, our first speaker is Mark Yates, an American based in Prague and covering Europe. He uses his more than 20 years of experience to translate the tenets of digital transformation and customer experience into practical strategies and actions. He also identifies emerging business models and helps firms identify obstacles and how to overcome them. And also dives deep into data to assess market dynamics to determine which technologies will be hot and how enterprises should invest their time and talent. So Mr. Mark Yates, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I'm going to share my screen. Let me make sure everyone can see it. So I'm going to share those. And I hope that if you could just, Andrea, if you could just let me know if you can see that.
Yeah, I can see it.
Great. So let me get in slideshow mode here. There we go. Can you still see it?
Yes.
Terrific. Everybody, thank you so much for having me. It's really great to be here. I think that we're going to start out a little bit and look at some of these big trends that are impacting what's happening right now in Europe, but also around the world. And I think it's a really nice introduction that Bogdan and Alex were giving us to talk about this new world that we're living in. It is a digital world. I think it was also said that you had what was it, a knife in your teeth and blood in your eyes or something. But we also have to be ready with the technology. Without the technology, you're already coming late to the table. And I think this is something we know now. So now the question is, what do we do now that we know this? What do we do with the technology we have? And how do we enhance it to go forward? And this is going to be crucial right now because we're still in this difficult time. And it's we've had our ups and downs. Europe did massive social distancing and closed down the economy, and then we've opened it up. Now cases are starting to come back. It really is the elephant in the room, and we're not out of the woods yet. And when we look further down the road, we can already see that there's going to be issues. They could go either direction. We just simply don't know. For example, take facilities management. When we think about managing a building, if people are working more from home, we'll need less space in buildings, and there'll be all these empty rooms and there'll be an overcapacity of office space, and already there's an overcapacity of accommodation for hotels and that sort of thing. On the other hand, I do know that in London, they've had social distancing requirements have caused some organizations to need more floor space so they can keep their employees further apart. So it really is a volatile time. We can say with probably some accuracy that we think the GDP is going to contract this year. The demand was hit very hard. And we also expect a lot of companies to lose revenue. Our most recent survey was about 3 to 4 weeks ago from IDC. I should pause and say I'm from IDC. We are an analyst and research firm, and we specialize in market research and trends, and we really keep an eye on this sort of stuff. It's our bread and butter, and we really want to make sure we're on top of these trends. And so we do, for the COVID wave in particular, we've done 10 surveys from way back in March, April, all the way up until August. And I think we have another one lined up. So we're really trying to keep track of what's happening and what's going on. And one of those surveys, the one from about 3 or 4 weeks ago, says that 70% of European organizations expect a drop in revenue. That is huge. Up until February, March, Europe was looking at 2 or 3% GDP growth, with some pockets of really fast growth, like in Romania and Poland, and some slower growth in other countries. But really, the whole continent is going to go down in this respect, and we're all in this together. We're also seeing after multiple years of recovery after the financial crisis, we're now seeing unemployment is again rising, and then we have the crude oil. And this one is tricky. Last week when I first prepared these slides, it was 46% drop in prices, and now it's a 42% drop in price from the beginning of the year. And there's other factors. Russia and Saudi Arabia had a slight standoff that caused prices to change too. So really a volatile time. And this is the big elephant in the room. And that's the big question about where do we go and how do we prepare for these kind of volatile moments? The digital transformation is part of that answer. And I think a good example of this is someone like L'Oreal. Now, L'Oreal is suffering along with the rest of the economy. People go out less, they need less makeup. They're going to clubs less, to dinners less, to work less, to parties less, they need less makeup. And yet, they had already embarked on a digital transformation program. And I think they're late in phase 2 or 3. I need to double check, but they've already come quite far. And that allowed them to very quickly move and make sure that their operations online were in good shape. And they managed to double their online consumer sales in the first half of the year. That's pretty impressive. They were already set because they had already sort of staked out their ground ahead of the game. They also saw a 91% jump, and this one really amazes me, in e-commerce for professional products. Now, this is for the salon owners. This is for the beauty salons. This is for the nail salons. This is for the professionals whose job it is to help others look beautiful. And the fact is, most of those places have been closed down because of COVID. And yet, 91% jump in the revenue online for professional products. There's also been a 15% lift, 15 channel partners who help sell their products and services are now using their VR tool. This is the tool where you can get a picture of yourself, and then you can see how different makeup looks on your face while you're shopping. This is an extremely interesting way to engage with customers. And 15 of their partners have taken on this Modi face to help them. This is incredible. This is what's going on right now. And in a sense, this COVID crisis has really accelerated some of the trends we've seen before. Now, just a note on the sales, by the way, you'll see there also is a shift in care. So they can shift away from sort of makeup and more towards skin creams and soaps and stuff like that, and oils to help with care. Now, that's one side. These guys are essentially a B2C manufacturer. But on the other side, we also see another example of a great pivot. This is one of my favorites, by the way. This is I'm gonna mess up the Greek name. It's Kotsofolos Dixon in Southeast Europe, and they operate in Greece and around the area. And was really interesting, we were talking to one of the executives, and he said that what happened was they had online sales. Their goal was to have online sales by 2025, I think it was, to be 50%. And in the course of a couple months, online sales went from 10% to 50%. But that created a problem because these guys are an electronics manufacturer and they need customer service agents to be on the floor to help people make decisions about their electronics. So what they did was they moved those agents online, and now those agents got to serve their customers through electronic channels. The stores themselves became fulfillment centers, so they could then be close to their customers and get them their products quickly. And then when the stores opened up again and the restrictions loosened, they moved it, they reversed everything, and the agents went back to the stores, and they used the cameras to help make sure that people were social distancing. Again, another example of digital transformation. They were ahead of the game. Or maybe they were right on where they needed to be, and when this extreme situation hit, they were ready for it. Now, both of these examples I have, I think is interesting, you'll note, is about customers. And I think, Alex, you said it, or I'm sorry, I'm now going to blend you and Bogdan together, but you said that we're in this together. We really need to care for our customers and think, Bogdan, I think you said that too. We need to really think about our customers and care for them. And this is something we've really found. We have these 10 surveys we did in Europe. We've got many surveys we've done in the US. And not all of them ask the same questions. We ask different questions in each survey. But over and over again, we see that customer experience and resilience have shot to the top. Oh, I got a typo in there. Customer experience has shot to the top. And this is what we see. So right before the breakout, right before the COVID hit, we had a survey done in February. And this was of a CXOs globally. And we found that resilience of operations and customer experience were 7th and 8th in importance. Not bad, but not the top. Just a few months later, both of those had shot to the top. And what we see also from a European survey, when we talk to what should the C-suite do in order to handle and tackle this crisis, the number one thing is to invest in technology to handle volatile customers. And this really comes back to that idea that we need to reach out, we need to create trust, and we need to help them. And what's really interesting is I've been a research analyst for many, many, many years. And when you see a survey like this, the gap between the first choice and the second choice is usually 1 or 2%, because most enterprises have a balanced approach and they're thinking about things and they're taking different components and putting them together. This 8-point gap is unheard of. That is absolutely phenomenally big. And that tells you that really drives home the point that investing in technology to help customers is crucial to being resilient and to taking our digital transformation to that next level. Also, I think this is something that came across in our surveys, is that more than half, like 57% on this particular data point, say the decision makers say customer engagement and experience technologies are going to be crucial for resilience. And this comes back to, we need to make sure we have those customers. Even if they can't purchase from us now and work with us now, when this crisis is past, we want them to remember us and to be there for us. It sounds cynical, but it's not. It's the right thing to do. It's about caring for the customer and really thinking about them. And this is where we think about digital transformation. Now, I know that there's lots of ways we can focus digital transformation. Manufacturers, I talked to a whole bunch of manufacturers right before this COVID broke out, and they're always about operations, cost, cut the cost, make things more efficient. So the customer isn't necessarily the front of their mind. But when we think about other industries, obviously retail, obviously B2C manufacturing, Obviously, utilities, the deregulation of utilities markets in places like Italy and the UK have really opened things up and created an opportunity for upstarts to come in and say, we have better service. In the banking sector, we know this is happening. The tech startups have come in and said, look, we can make this a lot easier for you. And the incumbent banks have said, we're going to do that too. We're not going to let you get ahead of us, right? So we see this over and over again, the digital technology being directed towards the customer. And a lot of this is because we live in this era where everything's a commodity, when everything's the same in quotes. If you can get the same service bank to bank or telco to telco, it's very important that all that digital be directed towards really supporting and making the customer feel welcomed. The question though now is, what do we do? The recovery is still in place. GDP is falling. There are some signs of recovery. I've been reading the news. There are moments where things are popping up and getting better. The really most important thing, I think, is we really need to be self-reflective and honest with ourselves and where we are. So in every survey we've asked people about where they are in this recovery curve. Well, you can't see my hand on the screen. There we go. Let me see. Hopefully the cursor, you can see it. And you can see from the economic situation. Now, this is a little bit of a cheat on our part. We're combining macroeconomic concepts and microeconomic concepts. But I still think it's a very useful. Can I put that down? So let me see if I can move that down. Great. So it's a very useful way to think about where we are. And we talk about the crisis hits, and that's the big shock. And when we think about that shock, come on, the business focus is going to be on continuity. How do we make sure we keep things going? Then we've stabilized our operations. We figured out that we can keep things going. Now the economic slowdown is going to be hitting. What do? We have to optimize our costs. Then we come down from our recession and we say, all right, we've bottomed out. We've had 2 or 3 quarters where things haven't been looking good, but now it looks like we're going to return to growth. What kind of foundations can we put into place? And then as we hit that return to growth era, we can say, all right, this is what we need to do. And finally, we get to the full recovery. We can start thinking about our grand digital transformation vision. Now, I'm going to take a customer experience angle on this because I think it's, again, I really think the data is telling us this. It's telling us to think about working from that customer perspective back to what you need. And we think about it from the beginning here. We've got customer triage. We've got CX value optimization, which is really just thinking about that experience and how you optimize that. The customer platform enhancements. Now, we've hit our recession. How do we put all our pieces back together? And I'll come to that in a second. Emotional engagement and these new business models now that we're emerging out of it, because it won't be enough just to be online. It won't be enough just to have those sales channels. We have to take those extra steps like L'Oreal and have a Modi face that can engage customers so they can really understand what's best for them. And then finally, that future customer where everything is interconnected and seamlessly connected together. And so IDC is big into use cases. I'm not going to go through all of these, but I think it's useful to just to display them, because when we're thinking about those next steps we need to take, it's good to see if we're in the early stages, we might want to focus on getting those agents, those contact agents remote, making sure our web portals and our websites and our engagements are up. If we're in one of these later stages, we want to make sure we've got our omni-channel commerce in place, that somebody, no matter where they are, whether they're text messaging us, whether they're on a social site, whether they're calling us on phone, whether they're on a website, they can buy, they can make a purchase. Now, I'm just going to say one quick thing on these 4 areas. These 4 are probably among the more important, in my opinion. And what you see is they can get lost in all the use cases and the urgency of making things work, but they also feed right into a lot of digital transformation. And you can see that's the omni-channel engagement. How do we make sure that all those channels are represented? How can we connect to each one of them? How do we manage those and bring them all together? Then we got the data integration below that. From all those different points, we're going to be getting data about our customers, about our products, about activity, about abandonment, cart abandonment, they call it in retail. How are we going to put those pieces together to create an architecture that optimizes that all, especially with our backend, with our infrastructure, with our storage, with our compliance and our regulations? And then finally, we want to make sure we include the cutting edge. Because in that cost optimization, and this is going to apply not just to customer experience, but to digital transformation in general and to operations, how is that AI going to help us? How is it going to identify patterns? How is it going to let us automate all those small things that take time and effort and cost money and automate all that so we can focus on the big stuff and really direct our efforts towards our customers. Right. So that's this. And normally I would present a framework, but I think probably most of you have a framework already. And I'm not, I mean, even though I'm at IDC, IDC has lots of frameworks of its own. I think the most important thing is you get a framework that's good for you and you make it work. I would just add that we put this inside as on top of that. So we really think about where we are in our recovery. Our plans, some plans may need to take a back seat and other plans may need to be accelerated. I think you mentioned it at the very beginning, Bogdan, when you said that we were planning to have 30% of our workforce remote, and then the crisis hit. That's one of those ones we accelerate. It's way over here on the left. So I think, please, these will be available after the event, and you can have a look. The second thing I think we need to think about is implementing the cloud platforms. Now, this is one of those things that many of you already have. And I think it's one of those things where it's like you want to go, well, yeah, that's easy to say, but it's also super important. And one of our most recent surveys, this was an RT Services survey, have found the tangible benefits of cloud platform use is customer satisfaction. And this is amazing when you think about it, because usually we think of clouds being 1 or 2 steps or 3 steps removed from a customer. But if you have a cloud foundation, there's a great example of an insurance company in Spain, I'm forgetting the name at the moment, where they've got a cloud foundation that allows them to rapidly develop products and services so they can test and see what's going to work. There was a bank here in the Czech Republic, I'm based in the Czech Republic, that did the same thing. They created a cloud platform for rapid product development, and they created plain vanilla swaps for currency rates, currency hedges and interest rate hedges for their clients. Very quick, they could do that. A great way to engage their clients. And when you look below this on what this cloud, why this customer satisfaction is here, the other top 4 areas is data integration, cost reduction, and security. I'm going to start on the right over on security. This is essential, absolutely essential, because this is the trust. If we're all moving online, if we're all going to move to our mobile phones, if we're all going to be doing things digitally, we need to trust the channels and trust the people we're working with. Now, cost reduction looks like it wouldn't have much relevance to customer satisfaction, but it does, because that's where the automation comes in. That's where the simple tasks can be very quickly established and set up and made to work well and fast and easy. And that reduces costs at the same time. And of course, data integration, the more you can bring all those data sources together, get those silos out of there, remove them off their clients into a cloud platform, set up your APIs so that everything can talk to each other, you're going to be in really good shape. The interesting thing is this is another survey where after these top 4, the value drops to something like 58. So we see that these really are the top 4 anchoring this. And this is really a strong argument for a cloud platform. And then finally, I would just add a few more in here because I feel like this is such a broad topic and there's so many different industries and it's going to be different for each industry and it's going to be different for each geography. So I feel like I need to say a little bit more. Just stay flexible. We know that the frameworks are important for planning and establishing things, but just we saw earlier in the Dixon's example, the electronic retailer, they were flexible. Once people started going back to their stores, they could send their clients back to they could send their agents back to the stores. And this allowed them to continue and create that continuity in that customer relationship. All of that was enabled through their technology. Also, ramp up the CX and trust. That's really what this has been about. It's really all of the data is pointing to your digital transformation really needs to have a customer experience angle on it. Now, again, if you're a manufacturer, if you're making rebar, okay, maybe it won't be as big as a focus area. But the minute you rise up to a telco, to a B2C, a lot of B2Bs too, it's the same idea. And then finally, seek suppliers who act as collaborators. And this comes back to what both Bogdan and Alex were talking about. For a lot of this stuff, we can't really go it alone anymore, right? Now, I know many of you are probably using cloud already as testing environments or development environments, but we see from our data that people are re-architecting. They're changing the way they're using their IT because of this crisis. Now, some of it was already in the plan, and now they're accelerating that plan. But it's really changing, and we have to depend on people to help us with this. There are some massive, like banks and massive government agencies that can do a lot of it alone, but most of us need those expertise. We need people who can come in and work with us and make it happen. So I think I would just close with a quote. So Jimmy Dean was a country music singer, television personality, an entrepreneur. He's not the most charismatic person, in my opinion, but I really like this quote from him. He made his fortune not in music or television, but in sausages. He created a whole line of sausages that sold immensely well in the US and became very wealthy because of it. That's what I like about this quote. You can't change the direction of the wind, but you can change your sails and go in the direction you need to go to get you can adjust your sails to reach your destination. He did that. He was flexible. He saw the direction the wind was going and he used it to become a very successful person. Thank you. Anybody there? Hello?
Yes, just 1 second. Okay, thank you, Mark Yates, for sharing such valuable information. Moving to the next speaker, Mr. Gustavo Zeidan, who has over 20 years of experience across a range of technologies and industries with emphasis on security strategy, management, architecture, and security protocols. Gustavo graduated with an MBA from Crafield School of Management in the United Kingdom and acquired various formal qualifications. He helped Visa Europe develop a new IT security function and a global security standard for mobile payments, and also was responsible for launching Vigilant Security into the US market. He also developed a governance, risk, and compliance solution, which grew to become an industry-leading solution as ranked by Gartner. He worked in senior management positions for Atos, Visa Europe, Ernst & Young, and Sage Group. The subject he's going to talk about is learning from building an SOC in the current environment. Hello, Mr. Gustavo Zeidan.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me. I'm trying to share my screen now with Zoom. I'm hoping this is going to work. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes, I can see it. Okay,
thank you. Let me just get the presentation. There were some settings I needed to adapt. Well, nice to meet you, everyone. I'm responsible for security engineering and operations at Sage. Sage is an accounting software firm in the UK. It's one of the largest technology businesses. And first and foremost, I would like to thank you, hang in there, with a lot of number crunching. That is going to be very helpful to try and digest what's coming next. The reality is that I didn't do a lot of number crunching, so that was very helpful to set the tone and the context. Basically, what I'm trying to do is just to share with you some of the experiences that I had trying to build a SOC, or we call it internally cyber defense operations in Sage. And I'm aware that this is not applicable to absolutely every business. And therefore, I try to generalize a little bit some of the learnings so that it can be slightly more applicable to the other types of businesses, different to the areas that we just do in Sage. Just to give a little bit of context, Sage itself, the size of the challenge, is that we were a combination of multiple acquisitions back 5 years ago, before Sage trying to go into becoming one big global company. We grew from acquisitions of several businesses, which meant that we had a very fragmented technology landscape. In total, we have 13,000 employees across the globe. We operate in 23 countries. We have 3 million customers. There is a lot of complexity in our business. And if you just look at the kind of technology landscape that we use, it's absolutely a bit of everything from the legacy, classic applications that we acquired when we got some businesses on board of the Sage family. Also, the new sexy applications that we have been building that's purely in tune with modern technology. And what you see is that there is no way that you can try and embrace everything and try and do everything at the same time. So there's a great deal of prioritization that needs to take place. And we're going to go through it during those slides. One of the interesting things in Sage is that we now have a large central team, like technology group as well. We are delivering on the more strategic products, but we also have fragmented and regional teams. Again, I'm not sure how comparable this is to all the other organizations or how representative it is of the attendees on this call. But I'm hoping that what we've been through is going to shed some light of like what security can do for the business to act as an enabler. One of the things that's a constant in Sage is that we have continued with our approach to kind of keep acquiring technology businesses and refreshing our technology stack, which meant that we are now like in a much better position than we ever been as a global business. Without further ado, I mean, what I'm going to go through is some of the challenges that we faced. So I think I ranked about 7 of them. The main challenge, I mean, if you look at the cyber defense operations team or a SOC, the primary purpose that we had for that team was to detect threats and respond to incidents. We can leave vulnerability management for aside, but mostly is about like detection and response, which is a core aspect of information security and cybersecurity nowadays, and it's applicable to every business. But if you look at the challenges of the larger corporations today, is that the level of complexity has increased significantly. And if you ask anybody in the business whether they know where their assets are and where their data is, they would be lying if they know what it is, because nobody actually has much of a clue, to be honest, when the business grows too large. And that is the first challenge in its own right. And how to overcome that challenge, it becomes almost like an initiative in its own right. We created an initiative in Sage called Digital Footprints, which essentially like we used DNS data to try and map out like every single external records that we had, like anything that any assets that we expected to be online, we would expect to have at least like a DNS entry if it's a system from Sage. And therefore we were able to map like, or at least get a very good handle on all the things that we expose to the internet. But again, you need to be creative depending on the size and complexity of your organization to try and understand everything that you own and you have. The marketing teams are being very creative. They're creating like content all the time. People are just spinning up like infrastructure and services like with just a credit card, nothing else. Just like go online, subscribe to a service, and just publish company data online. And that's a new reality. I think that's the reality of the digital transformation that my colleague was referring to previously. It's like more and more businesses are having to adapt to the pace and the speed of technology, and they need to engage those new channels to try and acquire more customers and service their customers. And therefore, they are having to accelerate the technology adoption, and therefore they will have to accelerate the security challenge as well, and how to cope with the complexity of securing those new channels. So that was one of the big deals, like one of the things that we needed to do up front. The challenge number 2 is this new age of experimentation. If you look, I think Sage has about like 2,500 developers worldwide. And every developer is trying to learn and play with new technology and build products that will make use of new technologies to make Sage competitive. And not only like machine learning and all those other kind of hypes that we can see in the industry, but actually just adopting modern infrastructure and modern architecture. And the reality is that most of the security solutions and most of the security tools, they were just not built to deal with this new reality. So my learning here is that actually you would expect that the vendors would have quite mature products, considering that we have been doing security monitoring for the past, God knows, like 20 years. And when you look at how those solutions fit into like what it is that we're trying to build today, there is a lot of catching up to take place. The vendors are really having to kind of, they're strained, and they're having to rush a little bit to try and fulfill some of the needs, which means that a lot of those engineering needs and plumbing that needs to take place needs to come from your own company, your own organization, or a partner if you're not big enough to have a security function and a more mature security team. Third challenge is building a SOC costs a lot of money. And I think we're going to enter into that conundrum a little bit later. Anything that you can think of from a system integration perspective, trying to onboard intelligence feeds, all the support channels, the eyes on the screen, everything costs a lot of money because you're dealing with people having to pay like the cost of like bums on seats, operating dedicated to your company. And therefore you don't benefit as much from economies of scales, and you have a few other constraints if you try to do it on your own. So that's the right time when you need to consider like a potential hybrid approach, where like some of those costs, you deploy technology and solutions that are slightly more scalable, and you focus your investments on the things that really, really matter to your business. But if you're building a CDO, you're always running against like people who can do it cheaper as well. And so you need to be very cost effective and provide solutions that are creative so that you can justify your existence when you try to do it on your own. And there are reasons why you would want to try and do that on your own. But one of the other challenges of doing that on your own is the isolated view of the world. You have to rely on other types of networks to really get a grasp on what's going on across the world. You need to build those links with other organizations, with other partners, like other security companies, perhaps, to try and understand, like, if you're facing something, then like to answer the question whether like, am I alone on this one, or actually like everybody's facing the same problem. And also to collaborate and share experience and solutions. And thankfully, I think that is a problem that the industry is trying to solve proactively from the vendors. They're trying to get more and more of their customers being part of like knowledge sharing hubs and things of that nature. But this is a challenge that you'd have to overcome if you're trying to build like a security operations team. The fifth challenge is when you decided to go a little bit overboard with outsourcing, you just say, actually, I cannot do any of that. It's too complicated. I'd much rather like just focus my attention on my business and let somebody else deal with security. Well, I think you need to be careful with the extremes, because ultimately it's your brand that's at risk. And so therefore you need to take some accountability and responsibility for security as a business, like as a collective business, all the employees and colleagues in the company, not only like top down, but actually like everybody needs to play a part. And one of the things that we found is that if you delegate that to a third party because you're trying to benefit from economies of scale, they will not have the business understanding that they need to be able to be as effective as you'd want them to be. They will not know out of the bat like how important an application is. Like you can use all sorts of asset mappings and tables and criticalities to try and steer them, but ultimately they're just going to see a number, and that number is going to dictate their actions. The nuances, the understanding, the ramifications of their actions, they will not have that understanding. Like if you just go completely overboard, like and outsource everything. So ultimately, you need to find that balance where you need to retain some of the business knowledge. The other bits that was a bit interesting, particularly in this day and age, is privacy became a big deal. Or privacy, I still struggle today how to pronounce that word correctly. But the problem with privacy is that they are like almost like best buddies with security, because they all want to protect the customer data, but there are times where they conflict. It's the kind of similar concept. You really don't want somebody to put a camera in your bathroom, for example, right? As protected as you may feel to have a camera there, like you're not going to feel like people being invading your privacy. And that is the conundrum that sometimes you need to face, some of the tough decisions, particularly when you're building something that's such a data-centric approach. Like when you're building a security operations center, you are collecting lots of data from various systems so that you can answer business questions quickly and effectively. And the more data you have, typically it results like in better detection recipes, or it results in faster response times. But ultimately, when you have too much data, then the privacy becomes a little bit of a problem, because then you need to protect the data even better, and you need to comply with many other regulations and standards around privacy. So again, we are talking about challenges. We're going to talk about recommendations in a minute. The other thing is, like, there's two people in the business, in any business, who will bury their head in the sand and say, we are a business, we need to take risks, and cybersecurity is just another risk. So let's just like face that this is no different from everything else that I do. And I don't think that I need a SOC or anything similar, right? I'm not here to sell you that you need a SOC anyway. And I think you can partner with MSSPs if you're not at the size and scale to build one. But I think that the issue has been around the mentality. People who think, particularly like in operations, that they think they can automate everything and they can monitor everything, they have visibility over everything, therefore like it's not going to happen because it hasn't happened to them the past 20 years. They're the most dangerous ones because they're overconfident. And the reality is, like countless times I've been to a company where I asked, like, have you ever been breached? And I said, no, I've never been breached. And I was fully aware that like a penetration testing had just happened and they completely pulled the company apart or ready to engagement. And the reality is that they feel that they've never been breached because they just don't have the right controls to understand the nature of the problem. And that is something difficult to find, but it's incredibly important as well. And if you think that you can attract and retain security skills whenever you need, I mean, that is one of the problems. It is one of the challenges that you need to pay attention to, because it's not an easy thing to do. So you need to have the size and scale to be able to retain and keep security folks interested. Otherwise, like, the industry is just going to take them away from you. So in our journey, and I'm going to try and be a little bit more like specific now. We didn't really know where we wanted to go with this because of all those hurdles and challenges. We could like anticipate some of them. And one of the things that we wanted to do is to keep our options open. And keeping the options open meant that we built an architecture that would allow us to collect the data from the cloud systems and from the classic infrastructure, or even like the AWS and Azures of this world. But also would allow us to plug into an MSSP if we needed to. So if you felt at any stage that we're not going to be able to do that on our own, or if we needed some extra help, we wouldn't have to redeploy and reintroduce a number of systems and have a massive integration initiative again. We could just turn the tap and feed the data into an MSSP and get the MSSP to add value straight away. And I think that was in hindsight, one of the like really key decisions that enabled us to change direction and move, as Mark mentioned, like move our direction to reach our destination, like according to the wind. The options that we had available to us, and I think probably this is going to be better used as a reference slide, is that we could fully outsource everything to an MSSP. We could try and do everything in-house, and a lot of the technologies at the time, they were like still trying to sell on-premise solutions. But we felt that those two extremes would probably not hit the mark for us. particularly because you're talking about a lot more resources if you're trying to do something on premise. You're talking about like a lot of infrastructure to maintain, particularly in something as high maintenance as a SIEM solution. So we felt that we needed a cloud platform, and ideally a hybrid delivery model. And the question was, which one of them? Because we could still do many things. We initially felt that it would accelerate things for us to just add an MSSP straight away in the early stages of our journey. And the reality was that they were so out of tune with our business needs that it only distracted us from our objective. And therefore we had to course correct after like 1.5 years of engagement with an MSSP. We said, okay, I don't think this is working. And actually, like a lot of the time and efforts that we spend trying just to get them to operate or to go on a journey with us, it wasn't productive. But again, because we're talking about a company that grew from mergers and acquisitions, has an inherent complexity that not many other businesses will have. So we end up shifting to an in-house SOC, which, as you can see, is slightly more expensive because the tier 1 being in-house is not something that is incredibly productive. So we may still like change direction again after we are more mature and have all the processes a little bit more orchestrated and automated. But we end up having to course correct, and nowadays we are fully like in-house and we're very happy with the output. And that's primarily based on some of the recommendations, and I'll try and go through them a little bit quickly. So the recommendation number 1 is that the bits that, and I'm repeating myself, the bits that the MSSPs will lack is understanding the risks that are specific to your business. So you have a great opportunity here to just like look at the risks that you face in your business that are relevant to your industry, and build a solution that will directly tackle those. And as an example, we built our rollout program for the CDO based on threat scenarios, and those threat scenarios, they were like ranked and prioritized. So we started saying, okay, so this whole concept of phishing and malware and ransomware is a big deal, and it's going to carry on to being a big deal for a good while. So how do you solve that problem? And then we placed all our efforts into trying to solve that problem as the first wave of maturity of the CDO. The second wave was, okay, so we are a SaaS company, and the risks that we really care about is people like potentially exploiting weaknesses and vulnerabilities in our applications. So that became our second priority for us to roll out more controls into that into those threat scenarios. And the third one, it is something that's it's very close to our heart, because we handle like payments for our customers with payroll and other platforms, is the issue with insider threats, and that is like the maturity journey that we are going through now. We are just like improving day by day our insider threats monitoring capabilities to be able to respond to those insider threats. So we essentially created the rollout for our CDO and for our SOC based on our risk appetite and our particular needs for the business. The other thing is like the second recommendation is to really focus on your crown jewels. Don't try and do too much. Try and have a way to say, okay, those are decisions that I really care about, and that could like be the breaking point of my business if something happens to them. So therefore, like focus your energy and your attention into protecting those decisions first, at least. And you may, like, we created a two-tier model where we say, like, there is a standard set of controls we expect to have across all the systems, but there are like some special systems that we are going to apply more energy and more effort to try and protect them and to have more data to respond faster to them. The third point, or the third recommendation, is like you really need to know how to scale and automate things. If you don't have the skills or the technology function that's able to give you that ability, you need to partner with somebody who's going to enable you to achieve the scale that you need. And scale was one of our biggest problems. Again, I don't know how that impacts everybody, but many of the big players, the scalability becomes much more of a problem than the actual technology itself. And trying to get technology like operate well integrated to all the disparate and heterogeneous systems. Another like recommendation I have is don't leave the developers out. They're ruling the world. Like the infrastructure is changing drastically. All these concepts of serverless architecture and everything else, it only means that developers more and more are operating in the DevOps or DevSecOps mentality, where they are also accountable for the ops side of the house. And it's very convenient for you just to build partnerships with the operations team and forget about the developers, while in fact, they are going to give you the logs, they're going to give you the sources, they're going to give you the data, and most likely they're going to be managing the environment going forward. So if you haven't done that in your security function, I mean, it's one of the most important functions that I would consider that the security function is to partner with, particularly with this digital transformation wave that we are facing now. And the other thing is like a lot of people think of security monitoring as a detection only, but actually the most important thing that we have done is right up front, we built some KPIs to try and understand how you're going to measure success. And the KPIs were very simple, were things like how long does it take between a detection taking place and an analyst working on the issue, and what is the total amount of time that takes between the issue happening and us resolving the issue completely. But that drove a whole mentality of like service quality in the team. That's and arguably like incident response is one of the most critical roles that you may need in your business, because what makes the real difference is not whether you're going to be hacked or not, because like there's always going to be a way in. The issue is how quickly you respond, how quickly you detect and you resolve the issue. In some simulations, it's very clear that sometimes we are able to detect like the next day that something took place, and then we just gave a full day of free rides to an attacker, which meant that they can steal data. So the sooner we can detect and respond, then the level of impact that you face with any kind of security incident reduces significantly. And to be able to respond effectively to them, you need data. Like sometimes, and the beauty of the technology nowadays is that you can pay per query. You don't have to pay for the intake of data or the monitoring side. You can just store as much data as you want and pay every time you need to use them. And if you don't need to use them, then that's great. You pay less. If you need to use the data, that's when you start paying. And those kind of business models allows you to be much more effective and creative with your security needs. I think that's it. I'm just going to leave you guys with a final tip. When we're building our CDO, originally because of being so like we need to hire such a large team so quickly, I think even mea culpa, was naive to think that some of the ops team could just build the plane and pilots the plane as well. It's like building a car and driving the car at the same time. And actually, it didn't take very long, but it was very important for us to course correct again. And the issue is, if you're going to fail, just fail fast and resolve as quickly as you can, like the problems you're going to face. But actually, just having clear separation, saying, look, let's give the building to the builders, and let's get the drivers on the driving seats. But let's not try and confuse those two roles, because it's very compelling for you to say, okay, I now have a guy who understands security. I'm just going to get them to build everything, and typically it goes very slowly and painfully. So it's just a final tip to say, look, just make sure that you use the right people for the job. because as much good intention as people may have, this actually may harm you in the long run. And that's it really from me. I hope you enjoyed the presentation, and I'm going to be here for questions at the end if you have any.
Thank you, Gustavo Zeidan. Going forward to the next speaker, Mr. Hugo Numorny, who is the president and co-founder of the CIO Council, the Association of the CIOs from Romania. He is also the chairman of the European Association of CIOs, and having an extensive experience in the cybersecurity field and more than 50 years in the industrial environment, is going to speak about cybersecurity challenges in industrial environment. Hello, Mr. Hugo Numorny. Can you open the microphone, please?
Yep, thank you very much. Let me try to share my screen. If I remember exactly where from, share the screen. There's a green button, and let's move on. Okay. Well, thank you very much for inviting me here, Forbes and Stefanini. It was a really pleasure, and I enjoy a lot of things so far. And honestly, I really like Gustavo's last slide, meaning that we all of us have a Dave in our organizations. Maybe we're not pretty. I didn't see exactly the screen, but if you take a look later on, you will see that Dave is, I mean, the human error, it's present in our life and in our businesses. So I'm going to challenge you a little bit to discuss what's happening into the utilities in general and what's happening into what kind of challenges we have into the industrial area. I'm no longer working currently into energy sector, but I worked 15 years ago for energy sector and aluminum. And every time I'm discussing with my colleagues and my friends and C-level, I'm trying to put them a single question. So what's happening if tomorrow, if you're going to your company and you see, for instance, a message like this on the screen. So it said, don't turn off your computers. Don't turn on your computers. Basically, if you are it would probably be a great surprise for everybody, but I cannot imagine some of us present to this table that we can even work or do something if we cannot turn on the computer. Well, Norsk Hydro, it's a company, it's one of the big 5 in aluminum industry as far as I know, and because I worked 10 years for aluminum industry, and Norsk Hydro, it was always a reference point for us. I worked for Alro, and we look at them like to the sun. Well, in March 2019, like last year, 35,000 employees from 22 countries, they go back on the pen and paper into a digital world. They come to the office and nobody can work. Because why? Because more than 100, I think 70 sites from this company was attacked by a ransomware, which crippled, which make all the computers and servers useless. So this happened to one of the biggest and largest company in this world, one of the reference in aluminum industry. And this would happen to you. This would happen to everybody. Most important thing here is that it was not only the so-called IT infrastructure that was affected. So not so-called, accounting system or all the other, normal IT department, but the industrial area was affected. So basically all of those industrial equipment were not able to function on automated mode. So if you want to create an aluminum product, then you should operate the furnace manual. So if 15 years ago we can do this in Alros Latina, I don't think right now we can do it because everything is automated. So those guys were put in the situation And you could find on the internet this very nice movie from the BBC that filmed into the company several days after the attack. It's absolutely brilliant to see how they managed to continue to produce. So this is a question which I would like each of us to have this vision. That you can go tomorrow to the work and you will have the unpleasant situation that you will not be able to operate and to do something, and you have to go to the pen and paper. I like Gustavo said, and many others and some others in front of me, John Chambers was the first who said that there are two types of companies, those that has been hacked and those that has not yet, doesn't know yet that they has been hacked. And this is actually the reality. We are going to the work and we are trying to be, we are safe, and but actually somebody could be in our network and we don't know. There are two events that happened in 1977 in Romania. So first one, it's one that it's into our collective memory. It is in particular, people age like me, we remember the major earthquake we have in the last 15 years. Lots of damages and lots of lost lives, and that has like $2 billion US damages. And there was also another event that people has no idea, but people from the energy sector are very knowledgeable about that. It was the first and the unique time when the national power grid collapsed. That means zero power. And in 4 hours and a half until the system totally collapsed, create damages like $5 billion US at that time, which was basically 10% of our GDPs during that time. So basically, just a few words about how the power grids function. There is a simple energy equation. It is you cannot produce more than you consume. You cannot consume more than you produce. So every time you are producing and consuming energy, this should be in an equilibrium. Anytime there is an unbalanced situation, the component of the power grid could be collapsed. So the guys who are working in the power energy into the power grid knows this very good. So they are every day, every minute, they're trying to maintain this energy. So basically, in 1977, there was a lot of human errors, but essentially we had a big unbalanced equation. So part of the energy producer has been collapsed and disconnected. Let me say like that. And ideally, normally a power grid should continue, but if it is well proper design. But when human errors occurred, appear what's called the domino effect, and everything falls like domino pieces. It was a human error. Everybody knows about it. But I was wondering when I joined the Hydroelectrica, and I'm still wondering, it's a question for myself. If this could happen from a cyber security perspective, if we are able or somebody is able to disconnect partially or totally a power grid, and we will see that, and we will see if this is a scenario which is real or it is not. So if we look into this guy, which is Admiral Michael Rogers, he mentioned since 2014 that the US power grid has been penetrated by Chinese. And then in 2 years later, they said that this has been done by the Russians. And then in 2019, he mentioned that they penetrated the Russian power grid. This is public information. So basically, what I understood as a simple citizen is that some powerful states are playing together with power grids and other critical utilities. Well, if nobody believed or nobody was aware that basically a power grid could be collapsed from a cybersecurity tools, this was actually happening in 2015, and I guess maybe the majority of you knows about it. This is a beauty of, this is one of the most referenced, this is the single attack which is currently officially confirmed that has been performed due to a cyber attack. It has been planned for 9 months. It has been extremely carefully planned for the 9 months. It's obviously a result of a nation-state attack. very brilliant. And what it's important here, because this is already digested into the energy community all across the world. Basically, it was 500,000 of the Ukrainians that remain out of the energy during the prior to the Christmas or around the Christmas time. And what's interesting here is that entry point, which is absolutely normal, as Gustavo said earlier. We all should assume the bridge. We all should assume that one point in time somebody will knock on our door and will get in. So the entry point was a classical phishing attack. Administrators of the network was those guys that were social engineered. There was used the Microsoft Office macro vulnerabilities. I'm getting the attackers get in. They moved lateral. They collected the administrative passwords. There are free tools on the internet. Search for Jack the Ripper, and you are able to, be in a free tool, and you could use it into your network. And you could, if by any chance you have the possibility to play with those tools, you can see that you can collect, if they're not protected, several important information like credential for the from administrative guys. Then everything was done in a very intelligent way. They get access to the VPN, so after they get access to the VPN passwords, they were able to connect to the Ukrainian facilities, the attackers, and they act as a legitimate users. But the most important thing, and this is why I like to draw attention here, is that those guys, because they knew exactly what is an industrial facility, they managed to get into firmware of the converters, serial to Ethernet converters, and modify them without, for the 9 months they modified the firmware of those converters. I will tell you what the converters are doing, and also for the UPS, because into the moment of attack, when they launched the attack, they shut down the UPSs, they shut down all the computers, and they remotely disconnected 28, if I remember exactly, number of power station. It was an attack that basically, it was just a warning, according to the specialists. So it was not in intention. They could do a lot of other damage. So the beauty of this attack is that they modify the firmwares of the UPSs, but also of some equipment that control the remote connection to the stations. Nobody take care about, and nobody take care even now about those type of equipment inside an utility and the critical infrastructure, unfortunately. And we will see that. So in the moment of the attack, they shut down the power, they shut down everything, they erased all the disks. It took like, I don't know, 30 days or something until they managed to recover the entire systems. So very important for everybody that works in the critical infrastructures is that all the critical infrastructure, no matter if it is, energy sector, it is gas and utilities or water or whatever, they're populated by elements, by machineries, by components that cannot be protected, because they have a very weak password, they have a low security, and once you are getting into the let me say facilities, and you are not discovered, because it's very important that, and you are not discovered, the company, for instance, doesn't have what also Gustavo mentioned, intrusion detection system, monitoring patterns, unusual patterns, and so on and so forth, and you acting as an administrator, then you could do whatever you want, basically. It was not surprised that, I don't know, in 2019, as far as I remember, the US government made a very interesting surprise, very interesting decision. They required by law that the critical energy components from the power grid, from their power grid, should be protected by analog, should be backed up by analog protections. So in a digital world, we're moving to a completely digital world, the critical infrastructures basically are backed up with analog devices. Why? Because actually nowadays into the US power grid, everything is remotely controlled. So they understood that at the end of the day, a breach could occur. And when a breach could occur, everything could be unfortunately controlled just by a click of the mouse. So for me, this was, retro technologies, so-called retro technologies. Again, it was imposed by law in US, means that we basically not necessarily fail with the digitalization, but maybe the digitalization is working too fast into the critical infrastructure. So there is a very nice book I always promoted. It's a book that is always, it's a very good literature. It's a very well-known book into the energy sector. It's called Blackout. If you have a chance to read this book, you will see that having basically a scenario where large European countries are put it down with zero energy for an extensive period of time is not so complicated, let me say like that. So could be done. Of course, terrorist attacks and so on and so forth, extremely be careful planned. But what is interesting here is that the modern liberal democracies are transformed into medieval in about 10 days or something. People are starting to kill each other because having no energy for us currently is like, okay, we will have, I don't know, a very romance night at the end, or I don't know, maybe our fridge will not function, obviously will not function. But at the end of the day, on a long run, if you try to stay 10 days without energy, that's not going to be very good. So I guess we all are, how do I say, we all know, all presentation stars, we are moving to the Industry 4.0, Industrial Revolution 4.0. We are basically censoring everything, starting from the clothes, starting from the, I don't know, we have smart TVs, we have smart fridge, they're ordering my milk or my beer. We have smart houses, we have smart streets, we have smart whatever. So we put sensor everywhere. And this is good, it's normal. So every, IoT that we ever thought about it, that has been invented, will be invented. So it's a world, we are moving to a world that basically everything will be digitalized, everything would be with launch information that should be collected and will help our lives in absolutely brilliant way. But what we all maybe not consider too often is that basically the fundamentals of the internet are not so solid, because the internet at the end of the day, it started long time ago as an let me say for university and military reasons, but the fundamentals of the internet are not so solid. And in 2016 we all heard about the distributed denial of service, where the Mirai botnet, which means that I think 150,000 of baby cameras were launched an attack, and they put down part of the and IoT devices. They put down I think 1/3 of United States territory, because basically they put the main route of the internet down. So this means DNS. If you have a chance to look and to understand what is the basement for the internet, who keeps the DNS into this this world, you will see that somehow this internet is not necessarily have solid fundamentals. Maersk attack, I put this here, and I'm trying to sell to everybody that Maersk attack, the biggest logistic company with famous NotPetya, they were a victim without being a target. So some, Russian agency has been released this information. They wanted to do something to an Ukrainian company. They launched this attack, but this attack spread across the world, and they hit a lot of companies and a lot of damages. Those companies were not victims. And one interesting point in here, and I'm always talking about that, a cyber weapon, it not destroyed on target. Its cyber weapon can come back to you. So this is one of the interesting ideas. And Stuxnet It's which was the first, let me say, a cyber bomb, cyber weapon. Basically, it's still infecting Step 7 PLCs across the world. But it was dedicated on target for some Iranian nuclear facilities. There is a market for cybercrime, and for just $7 per hour, you can order a dispute denial service on your competition. You can do that. It's a market. So what I would try to say also, this is an Oracle statistics. It has been said that the 0 days vulnerabilities. 0 days vulnerabilities can worth up to from 100,000 euros to 1 million euros if they are so solid and they could guarantee a strong attack. So there are libraries, there are market for these 0 days vulnerabilities. For instance, Stuxnet used 5 0-day vulnerabilities when the masterpiece was was created. Coming back to the power grids, there is a very nice experiment made by Idaho Laboratories, I think, and with just 21 lines of code, this power generator that populates the entire US power grid has been put down. This is burned on flame in less than 90 seconds. Please check on that on the YouTube and you will see a very nice movie. Alexander Klimburg, it's a friend of mine, I could say. There is a book, The Darkening Web. You could find a lot of information about cyber attacks. The world we are living in started, let me say, with the first so-called cyber war, which is the Estonian, and we all know that. And if you have a chance to take a look on the history, you will see that basically the first let me say, cyber attack considered is when some CIA, American agencies, it was not officially confirmed, but they managed to blow up a Siberian gas pipeline in 1982. It's a very interesting story, not confirmed yet, but it's a very nice. One more thing, I put Checkpoint security report, but you could check any company in this world that works on the security, any report, and this is just pay attention on this number. 97 of the organization are using outdated cybersecurity technologies. This is a report from 2018, and this information that crippled me. I mean, it's absolutely astonishing. So, which means that companies and businesses are using in a large scale. This is outdated technology. Just one thing, as some of other speakers also mentioned, we are living in as a CIO, as a CISO, we all, as a business, basically, we all should assume breach. So nobody currently could say my company is 100% safe. It is absolutely impossible. You cannot protect your company. You cannot protect your assets. It's a very hard, unfortunately, statement, but this is the reality. Everybody right now should assume the breach. That not means that you should open the doors, but basically you should have a very solid contingency plan. Don't forget about Norsk Hydro. You should have incident response plan, like all the other people mentioned already. So, because at the end of the day, somebody from your organization, that Dave, the girl from the marketing or the assistant of the CEO, will always click a link, which is a poison link, and will always bring somebody into your organization. I mean, a malware or a ransomware. Very important. I'm always suggesting to people who are working in the, administrators, or we are all profiled, not because we are, somebody's interested in our person, but is interested in our credentials, maybe. So if I'm planning, to put Forbes down, if by any chance I would have an interest on that, I would probably start to identify from the LinkedIn, for instance, or from other social network. What the people, who are the network administrators, and you'll easily manage to get this information. Some of the public companies that are putting all this information into the websites, and I'm starting to profile them. I will get in touch with them. I will be, a friend of them. it's pretty easy, and I will find that, for instance, they are fans of Liverpool or Manchester, and I will invite them to, I will send them an email with a very nice invitation to the last marvelous match performed by Liverpool, or even an invitation to, I don't know, US Open, if you're a fan of tennis. And maybe I will click the link that, because I don't know, I'm not very experienced, and then I could bring the malware into the organization. Just the biggest masterpiece, I mean, the first masterpiece into the cyber weapon, I mean, the Stuxnet, everybody knows about it. It's already, everybody knows about it. Start at the end of the day by an USB. And again, when I'm speaking to C-level, and I'm telling you, listen, if I'm usually on an on-prem conference, I just, please, this is my presentation. I hand them a USB stick, and everybody what to say, oh, thank you, and they put it into the, plug it into the network. Or Stuxnet got was inserted into the Iranian Natanz facilities, nuclear facilities, by a USB stick. So this is the world we are living in, yeah. Now, so everything which is wireless, everything which is USBs are attack vectors for advanced persistent threat. So that's why assuming breach is, it should be clear. Social engineering, I would highly advise you to read, The Art of Deception from Kevin Mitnick. This is one of the experts in the social engineering, and his methods when he was one of the hackers that hacked lots of companies during the I don't know, 30 years ago or something, on the dial-up era, on the dial-up era. But the principles are the same. The principles are the same. The human nature remains the same. The human weaknesses remains the same. That we are still Dave, yeah. No matter somebody offer me flowers or tell me compliments for something, I should take care of that. Especially if I have a critical role inside the organization. Very few about the critical infrastructure. At the end of the day, there is a big issue. No matter, again, if it's a power grid of water or supply or gas or whatever, because SCADA systems are unsecured by design. So industrial environment is unsecured by design because it was not designed to be secure, because it was designed to be completely isolated from the IT operations. What we are doing right now, we are, controlling power grids from the distance. We are controlling, power generators from the distance, and this is normal. This is the direction, yeah. But and I'm talking about Romanian power grids. I'm talking about everybody's power grids, yeah. Everybody critical infrastructure is that those systems are unsecured by design still. Of course, there's still years that has to pass until we will complete to protect our network. So the first and the major important recommendation for an industrial control area is to separate it physically, if possible. It's not possible. OT and IT. This is the basic rule when you're trying to get security into the operational environment, and please use what is called intrusion detection system. Nowadays, nobody can say that I can monitor and I could have an eye on the logs, and I could interpret the logs and the alerts. But an artificial intelligence systems based on artificial intelligence to detect and monitor the unusual pattern is absolutely mandatory, in particular for the critical. There are many other best practices, and you all know that. But at the end of the day, security is a culture. So as long as we will not understand that we can be the triggers, the vector for our organizations, we will still remain that Dave. I mean, the human error will still be the vector of the attacks. And at the end of the day, security as a culture. And my last final line is that basically security starts from the kindergarten. Thank you very much. I hope I didn't consume too much time, but and I'm ready for any question. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Hugo Morni. The next speaker is Alex Cernătescu, CEO, co-founder, and global head of strategy at Stefanini Infinite. Alex Cernătescu has over 18 years of experience in strategy, consultancy, digital advertising, digital transformation, innovation, software, and technology. The last 13 years of his career are a successful entrepreneurial story about co-founding Infinite Agency together with his brother Andrei in 2007. Now one of the largest digital agencies in Romania and one of the fastest growing in Europe, reason which was at the base of the 2019 joint venture with Stefanini, thus creating the brand new Stefanini Infinite, which is now serving clients in more than 40 countries. For his professional and business performance, Alexandru was awarded with the Forbes 30 Under 30 Award for Innovation, Entrepreneurship, and Disruptive Media Impact. Hello, Alex Cernătescu.
Hello, Andrea. Hello, everybody. I'm back. Let me just share the screen. Great content from all the speakers until now. I'm really proud to be a part of such a great speaking turnout. I think it's an honor to share the stage with so well prepared professionals who shared a lot of valuable insights. I also want to share that it is one of our group's main interests to continue investing in the cybersecurity area. And we have a lot of great things coming up in this respect. So, digital transformation upside down. It all starts with 2019, 1 year ago, when we decided to do this joint venture with our new partners from Stefanini. It's pretty cool that we actually celebrate 1 year in this September. And we did this for a very good reason. We wanted to put the best from both worlds, from the IT and technology world and the advertising and marketing world, into one single offering. Thus, we created the Stefanini Infinite brand. But what do you know? Quickly after we did this, the COVID stuff happened. And I'm sure that a lot of us went through very interesting times in the last months. I want to share with you something which, let's say, makes a big difference in how we see things. You have to understand that Stefanini Group is everywhere, almost everywhere in the world. We are present in 41 countries. So while this was unfolding, we kept talking to our colleagues from all over the world, and we saw this unfolding globally. So it was very interesting to see something of these epic proportions happening in all the countries at the same time. And basically, this created a very, I don't know how to put it, very interesting feeling, because everybody was scared at the same time. We were all scared. We didn't know how to cope, how to react, and so forth. But on the other hand, everybody all over the world was looking for solutions. So I guess the message is here that every countries can combine in finding solutions to cope with the new reality and the challenges that it presents. And yeah, I'm glad now, let's say, things are going into a direction in which we are adapting. A lot of our clients and partners already adapted in many ways. We started to come up with the new ways of facing the situation. But I want to just emphasize the feeling of seeing something of these proportions happening simultaneously in all these countries at the same time. I want to talk to you about the most important asset in our business, and these are the people. We have been a people-first company, always. And the Stefanini Group is also a people-first group. I think that if you manage to create the right culture, and if you have the right combination of people put in a correct way of working, you can pretty much solve anything, any challenge that life throws at you, to put it this way. And I remember the first thing, and this is very interesting. We also had a very successful campaign launch right in that month when everything started with the COVID, in which all of our colleagues moved in work from home. We had to adapt. It took us 48 hours to be fully functional work from home. And everybody was like, now what? What I want to say is that it wasn't only about us as a company, it's also about our clients and partners, because everybody's going through this at the same time. And you remember those times in which we started to, instead of washing our hands, I don't know, 5-10 times a day, we started washing our hands 20 times a day. We do this also today. You remember you couldn't find hand sanitizer anywhere. Those were crazy times, but it's very important to understand the people. It was very important to understand our colleagues and understand all the things that everybody's going through. Because if you don't look carefully at the people in your organization, and I know my colleagues talked a lot about technology, cybersecurity, all these things, which are very important and they are mandatory for things to operate. But the real fuel for any company is its people and the energy they can bring to their work. Then I want to talk about the clients. Like if you remember all these things, because right now I have the feeling of saying I'm asking my wife something, and if she doesn't answer, I say, "Are you on mute?" You know, because all these things are now part of our lives. We are now used to replace a lot of people we are talking to with a little green light that we see on the screen of our laptops. At the same time, we started hearing all these people closer and closer using earphones, you know, using speakers and so forth. And this is a huge shift. And if I was talking first about our colleagues and putting together a way of working in this new reality, then imagine we had to extend this to the clients as well. And to find ways of collaborating efficiently where everybody's working from home, us and our clients, and we have to find ways to collaborate. We have to find ways to replace the old ways in a lot of aspects. So yeah, a lot of jokes, a lot of new memes, a lot of things that we had to adapt to, and we did it with success. And last but not least, I want to talk about the consumers, because being people first as an organization, everything starts with understanding the people. Like I said, if you remember when the future currency was the toilet paper, and it was nowhere to be found, and people were emptying supermarkets, and it was this. This feels like ages ago, but it was 2 months ago, you know. So all these things led us to really try to understand what was changing, how the behavior of the people changed, because the way people buy and the way people act in today's reality is going to be the decision factor in what companies go bankrupt and what companies have success. And we really stood really close. We used a lot of our abilities to do data analytics, data science, data enrichment, all these things that we used to understand what the people are feeling, what the people are doing. Because you have to imagine, this was new for everybody. So you see, all of a sudden, this was new for all our colleagues. It was new for all of our clients, and it was new for all of our consumers. So all of a sudden, you have so many moving parts. You have so many things that are constantly changing with the speed of light. And you see all these types of new behaviors, and you simply don't understand. You know, it was also a meme that was showing a picture of somebody opening the last pack of toilet paper in the year 2060 from the ones they bought in 2020. So in this whole new reality, you have all these moving elements. You have a lot of uncertainty as a canvas, and you need to understand how to operate a business and bring quality and value to other businesses while keeping the consumers, which are our ultimate target together with our clients, happy, right? Redesigning customer experiences, understanding that there's a lot of new people joining the digital world, people who never ordered online. They were now all of a sudden looking to buy online, and they're not used to doing so. At the same time, you have a lot of businesses that never sold online, who wanted to have an e-commerce in like, I don't know, a month, 2 weeks, the same week. So all of a sudden, all these things put together lead to the new reality that we have now co-created, which is very interesting. Very interesting. So our vision and positioning came as a very good response to this situation, especially through this joint venture. We are positioning our servicing at the middle of advertising, technology, and data science. Because in this new reality, you cannot do only one. You cannot add value unless you really understand all of these aspects at the same time. Of course, not any type of business challenge can be solved with them in equal quantities. You have, let's say, 80% advertising, 10% data, 10% technology. In another situation, you have 80% technology and the other in 20%, and so forth. So the whole idea is to be able to put together all these skill sets in the service of your clients. Because if the clients are usually used to working with one of them or the other, in this new reality, they have to work with all of them. So basically, we use creativity, strategy, and technology to help industries and brands become closer to their consumers and their employees. Because if I'm talking to our clients, you need creativity, strategy, and technology to become closer to your consumers and your colleagues. The whole idea is that at the end of the day, 80% of the things that are implemented right now, of all the things that we are doing right now, they didn't appear overnight like that. They were there. A lot of the projects we are now accelerating, a lot of the projects we already delivered of mass digital transformation, of advertising campaigns, of changing the way our partners do things. Guys, they were there. 80–90% of them were already there. So what happened with this COVID situation, a lot of them simply got accelerated. And I want to share something else with you. There's this saying, you know, who was in charge of the digital transformation in the company, CEO, CFO, or COVID-19? You know, and everybody says COVID-19 accelerated this process. I don't agree with this. I think the actual accelerator was our reaction and the company's reaction towards COVID-19. Because sadly, I have a lot of examples of companies who didn't pivot fast enough, who didn't adapt fast enough, who didn't react fast enough. So very important aspect, the company's reaction to COVID-19 was in charge of the digital transformation process. And of course, as anything in this world, this type of reaction is only exaggerated when working under a lot of pressure, which a lot of companies are going through right now. A very important, very important message that I want to share with the audience. Do not fight change. The most difficult time that I see right now with a lot of our partners and clients and so forth is when they try to fight the change. The faster you accept that the rules have changed and the faster you adapt, the more successful you are with less amount of effort. The more you are trying to ignore the change or fight the change, the more difficult the entire process will be. So this is something that I really want to share. Accept the change and move to the next point, which is how to cope with it and how to be successful within it. 4 things that I want to share. Culture. If a company had the right culture before COVID, although now people are further because they work from home, they are somehow closer, more and more closer, because they talk more often, they share more often. They are more easy, it's easier to talk to each other, if you can believe this. I used to see situations in which people would stay with the headphones on the head, you know, for hours at a time, not talking to each other in different places. And now it's totally different, because you click a button and you talk to your colleague and you share the screen, you solve what you had to solve, and you make a little joke or something. So if the culture was right, the further the people are, the closer the bonds are being made. And there's another aspect that I want to mention here. Culture is the glue that puts people together in a company. Otherwise, what's a company? It's a headquarters, it's some empty offices. No, it's the culture. And if the culture was right in the first place, then in this situation, the culture glues people together from wherever they work. So space is not that important, but the culture that connects the people in a company. Then is the way of working. If people were serious before, they will be serious in this situation as well. The ones that were not serious at the office are not going to be serious at home, and the other way around. So the way of work may have changed, but what you need to follow up and the way you need to measure the performance stays the same. New solutions, new ways. We innovated a lot for a lot of our clients. We had to pivot. Instead of organizing events offline, we had to do it online. We had to change a lot of the customer experiences. We had to find incredible ways to help them pivot the business model, rethink the processes, rethink strategies. And this was really, really challenging. One of the key things that I want to underline with this entire situation, which is not a happy one, as you well know, but a good thing is that we and a lot of our partners and clients, we learned in a couple of months how much we would have learned in years. So in a way, this whole situation, if you choose to look at it from this angle, it's a truly professional accelerator who created really good professionals way faster than it would have created them. This is a very cool aspect of the entire situation. And another thing that I want to share, it is very important right now for all the organizations, and I'm not talking only about agencies or software companies, or I'm talking about big companies as well. A lot of our clients know this, we share this with them. It is very important to create an adaptable company, not an adapted one, okay? Because the key lesson here is that it's not enough to adapt to the new now. You need to be adaptable. So the new reality is that you need to be fluid, open, and adaptable, not just adapted again. Because I don't think we're going to see iterations anymore. I think we are going to see a real-time, fluid future in which only the adaptable systems will survive and become stronger. The future is ours, good or bad, it belongs to us. The only certain thing that we have now is uncertainty. And also the people that were next to us when the world turned upside down in 2020. So this is a very important aspect, because I like this example, and I gave it into more of my speeches. You have to look at a company like a boat. And usually these boats, the commercial boats, have very clearly established routes. They have clearly established rules and protocols. You know exactly where the boat will be, at what time, and so forth. And there are exploration boats. Nothing is clear there. You don't know where they will go. You don't know what they will do. You don't know what they will find. And the only thing the exploration boats have is their crew. They are relying on each other and they trust each other. And what happened with this COVID situation, a lot of the commercial boats instantly became exploration boats. And the question is, how many of them had a reliable crew that could trust each other no matter what the sea would throw at them? It is very important to really understand in your organizations if this culture is where it's supposed to be. And if the people can really compare themselves with a crew on an exploration boat. We said, and I'm about to end my keynote, we created this digital hour of power in Europe. And I was looking at it, and I guess the main message I want to leave all of you with is right there in the title, Digital Hope. It's all about hope. I think no matter what the world will throw at us as professionals, as humans, as family, people with families, as people who try to live, to evolve, and so forth, guys, I think there is hope, and I think we should always keep the hope and give our best to fight all these things that are being thrown at us. And I believe it's going to be an age of partnerships, of sharing, and of the humanity putting all the best together to go to the next level. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alexandru Cernătescu. The next two speakers are Peter Kane, EMEA Digital Workplace Director, and Ionuț Șerdean, EMEA Digital Workplace Practice Lead. Peter and Ionuț are responsible for the digital workplace solutions for Stefanini. Between them, they have 50 years experience in designing, implementing, and managing digital workplace and ITSM programs. Hello, Peter. Hello, Ionuț.
Hi. Let's let me do this, right.
Yeah, we should be okay now.
There we go. Right, good afternoon, everyone.
Hi. Good afternoon. Let me share my screen, Peter.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, can you see it?
Yep.
Okay, should be good then.
Right, so what we're going to do today is go through the Stefanini digital workplace, which we refer to as Next, and we'll explain that a little bit more as we go through it. As just stated, myself and Unit will be doing the presentation. As we're a little behind on timing, I'm going to go through some of these first pieces fairly quickly because they'll be familiar to you, and then Unit will get into some of the key contexts of what we're going to discuss today. So if we go pre-COVID, then there was a lot of talk of the digital workplace, and it was all about the employee being able to work wherever they wanted and whenever they wanted to do that, and a lot of building of that structure. Then of course with COVID, if we go to the next slide, that all became an instant reality and people had to be able to do that. If we go to the next one quickly, then we look at the situation where there was that traditional workplace. Again, a lot of that internally structured in terms of what it was doing, and there's been a lot of building to move into cloud-based services, which are essential in terms of the way that the services would work. And if we go onto the next slide there, then this did create an issue of the digital dexterity gap, as Gartner called it, where a lot of the tech was going out there, so people were getting the collaborative systems but weren't making the best use of them. Now, again, that has closed fairly significantly with COVID, as people have started to make good use of their systems. But then, on the other hand, we have a situation where, whilst that gap is closing in terms of people using it, they're not always using it the best way, and we probably all suffer from a bit of Teams overload and Zoom overload, as there's been a proliferation of that over the last several months. So getting some structure and shape to this and getting it all to work fluently is the key element. So if we go on to the next slide. So Stefanini have built out their reference model for the digital workplace. The idea here is we've taken a set of data in which these services can be a structure in which the digital workplace we think works most fluently. We've been constructing that so that we have our physical reference model to work to, and then we've been building the structures around it in order to both deliver it and to support it. So we're covering everything here from the full automation that we do, and we focus on ServiceNow to achieve that, through that automation going into zero-touch provisioning. So if you've got new employees or employees that are working at home, then actually getting the device to them and being able to work from that position becomes an absolute essential in terms of their work. You know, harder to get engineers on site or to do any of that activity. We look at a lot of the monitoring activity that we like the tool NextThink to do that, so that with the devices again being much more spread out in terms of how people are working, you need everyone to make sure they're optimized in terms of what they're doing, and tools like this can really help. And it's all about integrating these very tightly together. And the digital coaching role that you see on the top right, we see that as paramount now. There's a lot of people trying to use Teams where they're going, I'm sure I can do this, or why have I got structures like that? And getting, if you like, interactive learning when they need it. So when they're hitting those issues in terms of how they can actually work. Unit, I'll hand over to you in terms of the other key part that we have in all of this, and as was discussed in one of the earlier slides, is all about the automation piece of it.
Yeah, so as Peter was mentioning, and a lot of the speakers did talk about looking at technology, AI is a big piece of it. So we do have AI as a big chunk of our reference model for digital workplace. Now, why exploring artificial intelligence will bring a benefit to any organization? It's pretty straightforward. I mean, speeding up tech onboarding, which now is a bit more difficult. You don't have that face-to-face flexibility of being face-to-face with the person. It helps in making consistency easy, right? Because you have a consistent mean of communication and a consistent way of reaching out to people and handling complex requests. It shortens resolution times. Again, using machine learning and other products which can assist AI into actually looking at history of resolutions and combining that big data analysis with it, assigning to right people based on skill sets and labels, keeping customers happy with smart answers and smart communication, adding bots to the workforce, which will mean that we can switch I don't know, recurrent tasks to be done by a robot, while people can actually do the valuable thing and do more with less part. Touches that specific topic. Gardner predicted a while ago, I don't know if the predictions changed or not, that 30% of support capacity will be performed utilizing machine learning and AI. So it's a powerful concept, and it's a powerful technology to look at when looking at your digital workplace environment. Now, for our reference model, this is Next, which is Natural Employee Experience Technology. And we've split it in three main categories of services: managed services, functions, which are the traditional ones; value-added services, which focus a lot on the processes and procedures and maintaining the services up and running; and of course, centers of excellence, which look more towards the technical part. And some of the topics in this webinar were touched by that. Cybersecurity Center, which is something we're doing this year and really proud of. Microsoft 365 as a center of excellence, and benefiting from experience from multiple environments and working in several customers and multiple customers will push that the maturity of these centers of excellence to a higher rate, and of course delivering more. Now, from an operational perspective or a delivery model perspective, this is how everything looks in a digital workplace reference model in ours. And we look at a digital service management office. That's the value added part, where again, you have the middle structure, the middle plate of services we were showing earlier in the slide. You have the managed services function, which is traditional support part, right? The service desk, remote technical support, a digital cafe, which is a white glove support, which can be shifted into a virtual digital cafe. To Peter's point, this is where those digital coaches reside, and this is where you can reach out to a support structure that can guide you and hold your hand while you adopt new technology and things like that. And of course, centers of excellence. So This is how we manage the delivery of the services. Of course, to Alex's point, transformation is key. So that's where global service management and global transformation management comes in place, managing all these services. And further along in the slides, we'll show you how a maturity roadmap looks like for for our reference model, for the digital workplace reference model, and how these things come into play. So maturity, I'm going to hand it over to Peter for the whole focus on 5 part, and I'll pick it up a bit later.
Yeah, thanks, Unit. So the first thing we've found with many of our clients is to, if you like, rapidly move them up that maturity model. So by having the reference structure in place, we've got a base model that we know works, covering all the people, process, and technology that we need to move up that stack quickly. So not a step at a time, but getting up to that business partner level as quickly as we possibly can, and being ready for handling everything in the new normal, where the digital workplace is a reality and a necessity, as opposed to something that was being moved to more gently. If we go to the next slide, then the approach we've taken is a fairly classic, from starting out with the current mode operation and then aiming to a future mode operation, which has got all of the digital workplace in place, and we've moved up that maturity curve through a series of target mode operational steps. And what we've done with this to make it work is not have it as a project where things are being delivered, but to really look at the outcome of each step. So at TMO1 and TMO2, we should know what data has actually changed. What should we be seeing in terms of the data that we're getting back from the environment? Not just that we've implemented some of the components that will help move us forward, but actually that they are working and they're delivering the results that we need to see, so that we can track that the whole way through, and in an agile manner be ready to adjust each of those service elements as we go through and as they mature, and how that actually works. If we go to the next slide. And so what we do is we do set a set of guiding principles, because it's one thing to say, yeah, let's go and put it all in, but of course there is always a cost involved, and making sure that you've got that, and we like this balance between the innovation intensity, which is going to drive that employee satisfaction, but on the other hand, we're still watching the costs in there, so we're putting the right things in place at the right time, which are going to give us that, if you like, biggest effect in terms of the way that we work. And we go next. Back to you, I think, Unit.
Yep, thank you. So one of the things we do in this roadmap is co-create, right? So this roadmap won't make any sense unless we actually build it with the customer. So as part of transition, transformation management, and all the processes we run, co-creation is key for delivering this roadmap, which at the end should be something aligned to the business, aligned to the expectations, and of course aligned to whatever trends happen in the market. So looking at co-creation, it's pretty straightforward. We talk to service improvement teams, business partners, and employees. We build a focus group which will be with us throughout this whole transformation journey. We set 2-day design thinking workshops, which are recurrent. We look at different topics like what tools they need, what channels, omni-channel being a key of it. And I'll show you in one of the slides further along how we reach that omni-channel perspective. And of course, building the personas and the journey. So it's pretty straightforward. We need a journey for each service, and we need a journey for each persona, and we need to understand how this transformation roadmap will impact the employee and the employee satisfaction. Of course, to the previous slide's point, you do have to look at innovation being there, the people part, and of course the cost control part. So moving forward, if I can actually move forward, then I can. This is how a roadmap looks like. I won't go into detail with it, but if you look at it, TMO1, to Peter's point, the first target mode of operation is an implementation of people process tech as a standard, right? So that's where we put core processes, we put our managed services in to make sure that things work as intended. Now, moving forward into TMO2, that's where we add value services, and that's where things begin to take a bigger leap into maturity, right? Using data analytics and transformation management and proactive problem management to actually influence the critical KPIs we want, which are again decided with that co-creation workshop platform. In TMO3, we now look at a bit more at value, right? And we focus a lot on the employee. So we have a solid baseline for everything. It looks good. It works, and satisfaction is growing. Now, how can we actually move forward with it? And most of what's happening here in TMO3 is on the infrastructure side. We focus on zero touch and autopilot and modern management from an infrastructure perspective. Joiner, mover, leavers, or the onboarding or offboarding of employees, which now has changed drastically, right? Because of that, the fact that we cannot be physically present in the office. And we move forward and set the scene for pushing this whole structure and switching it towards an enterprise service management, where everything is managed end-to-end by a central function, and employees get the same experience by consuming any IT service. And of course, you now can shift your focus towards other business processes like HR, finance, facilities, and bring them together. Of course, automation is key here. Security, the cybersecurity part is key to have it here, but the automation part needs to be aligned to business needs. And of course, that's where AI comes in place, machine learning and other things. Now, to go fast through an example, this is a study case we created, right? A simple, a generic company with some KPIs. The whole point of these slides and this approach is to show you how from TMO1, which is basic, right? We start influencing things like first level resolution, ticket cycle time, automating password resets, and major incidents, which are a big thing for a company, right? It's a critical process, and how it looks into a future mode of operation after a couple of iterations and deployments of services. So if you look at it, omnichannel is present, giving the employee the chance to choose the way they want to reach out to us and for support. Customer satisfaction is going up, and of course tickets per end user and number of tickets are decreasing, and of course portal usage is high. And then we touch base on the time at the part, which is average time to onboard and ticket cycle time, which means a lot of less effort being put into this whole support function. So I think, Peter, the next part is the CNHI part, a study case on one of our customers. Peter, you're on mute, by the way.
There we go. That came up earlier, didn't it? Yes, so very briefly to conclude, this is an example from CNHI, one of our clients we've been working with. They make a lot of agricultural and industrial type equipment. If we go quickly to the next slide. For those of you who don't know them, just some idea of the scale and the way that they're working. We've put in this model and particularly looking at the how we would construct the support model that they have across their organization to start reducing the level of effort that actually happens in their different centers. So if you like the local support that's going on. So yeah, Unit, if you go to the next slide. So just briefly, this is after some time of implementation, but what we've seen is that two things have happened. One, the shift left activity has been very effective. There's been a big pull, as you see, from the local technical support into the new function of remote technical support. So this is, and it's happening a lot now with COVID, in terms of the engineers can't get on site, but if you get the tooling right, you can do a significant amount of work remotely. And then equally pushing more to the service desk so that we can catch as much as we can in those shorter calls at the desk itself. At the same time, we've been identifying problems and getting those resolved fully. So the actual volume itself has gone down at the same time. So here we're seeing the results of that end-to-end model working, and certainly appreciated by the client in terms of the results that they're seeing there. I think that concludes our part. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Janusz. I want to say thank you to all the speakers for sharing such valuable information. And next, we are going to answer some questions from the audience. So I'm going to let the Bogdan Gălușcă in charge with this part of the event, and I will invite back all the speakers.
All right, so hi everyone, welcome back. Let's just give a second for all the speakers to join back. I see Mark, I see Alex, Peter, and Janusz. Hi, Hugo. All right, so first of all, thank you all for wonderful presentations. We're a bit over time, so we won't have all the time to go through all of the questions that came from the audience. We've heard about trends from Mark at the beginning. We've heard about security at the enterprise level, and also from Gustavo, and then from Hugo, what it means for what security means at national level and critical infrastructure. Alex talked about leadership and what it means to build up a team, and Peter and Janusz, how we, what we do at Stefanini when it comes to modern workplace and responding to some of the shifts in the way we work. So that having said, I would like to start with Mark. So Mark, you talked about the trends, right? You talked about uncertainty and the shifts in priorities for some for most companies. I would like to ask you about what about shift in values? Is there any research regarding that? Some of the people that I discuss with, they tell me that we should stop measuring only profit and growth and running after those numbers quarter after quarter, fiscal year after fiscal year. Those are important indeed, but what about our social impact? What about those values?
Yeah, that's an excellent question, and I wish that we had data specifically that questioned that type of thing, because I think there's a big push coming around with circular economies, with sustainability, with the understanding that GDP is not the end-all be-all, and economic growth and financial growth are not the end-all be-all of why we're here and the corporations that we have. So my answer is going to be mainly anecdotal, because we've talked to so many people who really have been, now that we're in this crisis together, rather than compete directly like they used to or get the best deal, what they've done is they've really tried to work with their clients. Now, there's one example I don't have permission to disclose, but they basically said that they were working closely with a client and they ripped up the contracts, metaphorically. In other words, they said, we'll figure things out later. Let's make sure you've got business continuity now. They set up all their systems. They made sure things were working. They had the employees checked in. They got them set up with the new laptops and equipment, so they could work from home. And they made sure everything was working and continuity was in place. And they didn't worry about the big contracts. They didn't worry about making sure they had the accounts receivables and all that stuff in place. So I do think there's a shift in value, and I think that trust is becoming a big part of it. Because it's like I think Alex may have said it earlier. Some companies won't survive, but we want them to survive. We even want our competitors to survive at some level, because they keep us honest, so to speak. And we're all in this together. We really are. So I think the shift is there. Whether it will last, I hope so. I mean, just to put a plug in for IDC, we've got a new sustainability practice that we launched this year, which is looking at these very issues. So I hope so. I think it's a trend. I think people are waking up to it can't just be GDP growth. It can't just be financial growth. It has to be other things. It has to be, what are we contributing to the community? How are we making our staff have good work-life balance? But my evidence is anecdotal. It's just from talking to people, not from data.
We're looking forward to that data, maybe in the
Yes,
near future. Yeah,
yeah, I'll try to drive that. Get a survey out there.
And one other question also for you, Mark. If there were a couple of questions that came through regarding the new trends, but I'll try to paraphrase them into one. Can you just give us a couple of thoughts regarding new versus accelerated trends? So in this whole digital space.
Yeah, I have to confess, I think that really what it is accelerated trends versus new. I think Alex may have mentioned that as well. The new trends, I put them in quote. I mean, people are pivoting to change their business models and how they engage, but a lot of that was already there to begin with. I think that it was the foundation was there for a lot of the companies. But it's like going back to L'Oreal is a good example with their Modi face. That's a new thing. That's a new way of engaging clients. But the COVID accelerated that. So I think that really it's more about acceleration than absolute new trends. But
Okay.
being a good analyst, I would hate to say too much without lots of examples to say these are new, these are not new.
Okay.
But mainly what we've seen is acceleration.
Well, thank you, Mark, for those insights. There's a few questions on security, and I'll go between Gustavo and Hugo, but I'll start with Gustavo. One of the things that came from your presentation, and a lot of details there, and a lot of to-dos, and a lot of insights. But one thing that is someone asked is regarding costs, right? And you mentioned as well, it's not cheap to put in place and run a security operations center. So if you're a smaller company, if you're an SMB, how do you approach things? Because as an SMB, you want to put yourself out there, you want to sell more, you want to reach more customers. And now, since we can only do it digitally, that means potentially even more vulnerabilities. A small one-pager website done by marketing can be the bane of your, you can lose all your data. So how does an SMB cope with this?
I could even share later on, like an article that I wrote a while back on the top 5 things for SMBs. But in reality, is the technology is playing to our favor when it comes to SMBs. What was impossible to do like a few years back, which is like to have a full-blown enterprise-ready system available to SMBs. The likes of pay-per-use model that was introduced, where you pay pennies sometimes for certain types of transactions and volume of data that you pump through the systems, you pay per use, which means that if you are not big enough, you can still benefit from the pieces of technology in a very similar way that you can see like startups using Salesforce, and then like big, massive companies using Salesforce. You have a pricing model that allows for startups and smaller players to benefit from those services. There are other companies as well that got introduced into the market that are specifically targeting the needs of SMBs. So typically, it's all about scale, isn't it? It's like it's very hard for a service provider to try and build relationships with thousands of SMBs. But what they have developed quite strongly is a partner network. So if you have MSPs or IT providers and partners that provide you with IT services and that level of knowledge, typically you can rely on them to build the partnerships with security providers who will give you and add that extra layer of service as well at an affordable cost. So I think you are not alone on that one. I mean, you're not just going to be a victim and there's nothing you can do. You absolutely need to prioritize your business risks, and there are things that you can consume that will significantly increase the security posture of your business. And of course, like you need to drive the security awareness and everything else, irrespective of the size that you are. But it is one of those things that actually the technology evolution brought to our favor, was the ability to protect SMBs in a way that they were never able to do previously.
Well, thank you for that insight. I'm sure the person that asked the question is got a lot of insights, and I'm sure there's a lot of examples that you can share as well. Another one on security to Hugo. So you mentioned about, I'll paraphrase you a bit, the one-man army. Right, and there's no better example than the recent Twitter, hacks and all of that, which was a 16-year-old or a couple of 16-year-olds, bringing down Twitter, and hacking all of that. How do we protect? I mean, it's now you have to have, a country needs to fight with potentially one hacker, or and also there's two sides to the question. One of them is, how do we fight against one person or one employee, which can bring down the whole system? And the other one is, why now? I get a feeling, this is why, the format of this event, we had 2 sessions on cybersecurity, because from our experience, everyone is talking about it these days, and they talk about it not 1 or 2 times more than before, like 10, 100 times more than before. Everybody's worried about cybersecurity. Why now? And how do we protect against these one-man armies?
Very good question. So this one-man army exists in all the companies, no matter if it's, most of them are unintentional. Okay, so just to complete Gustavo regarding the SMBs, one idea: if you're an SMB and you're locking the door to avoid somebody could breach your door and you avoid the theft, that means you should take some to make a risk analysis and to see if you are in a situation at Norsk Hydro and you're coming tomorrow and you see all the computers in your company will be dead if your company still exists. Yeah. So if you still continue, that's fine. You don't need cybersecurity protection, but most likely you will need some. So it's a balance between risks and potential losses, and you should find that balance. At the end of the day, we all agree that the breach could occur anytime. But if you have business continuity, if you have disaster recovery, if you have assess, all these, if you have plans to continue and to restore, you can live with that. Yeah. But you should find the balance for this. One man's army. When you said one man's army, first of all, we as a CIO and we as a business, we have to understand that we are vulnerable no matter what. Unfortunately, the bad guys are always one in front of us with at least one foot. We are all saying that artificial intelligence will save our will work for the cybersecurity protection, which is absolutely real. But on the other hand, for the malware, for the spam, for whatever, engineers can no longer protect the companies, but software can do. But on the other side, a cyber attack could be empowered by artificial intelligence. Yeah. One man attack cannot do too much. I don't know what's happened. Honestly, I'm not aware. I didn't follow the subject. But in general, larger companies could be put down by having some lowering down the best practices. If you're following the best practices, there are chances to be attacked or even hit. The understanding of the assumed breach is that somebody can be in the organization, get entered the organization, but you will discover it. If you have intrusion detection systems based on identifying unusual patterns, you will find the guys, you'll find the bad guys, yeah? But you cannot stay like Ukrainians for 9 months with bad guys in your house, yeah? This is not normal. This is advanced persistent threat. So again, bad guys could be in your organization, but follow the best practices. Even if it's one guy, or even it's a secret agency or sponsors the organization by a state actor, you should follow the best practices. And and number one and number two, very important, cybersecurity as a service. In my opinion, right now, no company can protect themselves unless you have technology and very good partners and procedures and policies. So cybersecurity is a service that could be externalized, and you could depend. That's why you could find a good partner, maybe like Stefanini, if you're having these type of services, and because no company in this world right now can protect. I mean, not obviously everybody. That in general, even if we talk about the SMBs, they cannot protect themselves. You cannot have, the bad guys are working 24 hours, 7 days, 36, 75, all the year. Yeah, you should go home, and so on and so forth. I think the last idea, best practices.
Okay, thank you for that. I do agree. I mean, we have done great strides to invest globally in building up this capability. I think it's very important that we treat this seriously. I think that at some point, we need to fight the paranoia. Some people, they fear that everything might happen. So in one day. So I think that's it's important to manage it and use the best practices. I fully agree. I'll skip Alex and I'll let Alex at the end. I want to ask Ionuț or Peter, or both of you, one question that came is, we talk about co-creation. This is a bit, I'm on the inside, so it's a bit hard for me to ask the question. I know kind of the answers, but I'd like you to say it as well. What do we expect from our customers? We talk a lot about co-creation, and we build up these solutions, these incredible models that, respond to all of the modern workplace challenges. When we say co-creation in this space, what do we actually mean? What do we expect from the customer?
Do you want me to answer that, Unit? Do you want me to
you can go. Shoot.
Well, I'll give my view. I think the thing is it's a blend. I think we have clients that are looking to us as experts to bring the solutions, right? So we have to do that. It's not a case of sitting down together and thinking about what something might be. But the co-creation piece is very much around what works then in their particular environment. And one of the areas I particularly focus on is not actually so much sitting with our customers in terms of the IT people, but with their employees. Because if you want to get something moving in a digital workplace, if you engage the employees in some of that co-creation activity, which may be around some of the portal designs, or even how some of the AI is going to work, you've got a much better chance of success if they've been engaged in the process of them actually being champions of that and making that work as you move forward with it. So but for me, a lot of the co-creation is down at that employee level, which is the subtlety to make that accelerated environment work and to hear their issues that they face with the technology firsthand, and not an IT department's necessary opinion of what that is. All right, so that's a personal view. That's certainly where my focus is when I go into organizations to do that. Unit, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think one thing I'd like to add is change management and adoption, right? The awareness, desire for the change. To Hugo's point, if you want to stick to best practices, you can have the best practices in the world. Unless anyone follows them, you're gone. So I think change management, and this is a key thing we rely on from our customers, being on board with us during a transformation and adopting it and supporting it and having engagement. And that's why we try to co-create, right? Because it comes natural. Once you take part into the decision, into the whole design thinking process, it makes sense. It's kind of your baby, right? So it's nothing you enforce. It's something organizations should together adopt. So that's the tricky part. But that's how I see it.
Well, thank you for that. And a last question that I would like to ask is for Alex. Now, Alex, you talked about leadership and about the team, and because we're friends and we know each other so well, I'm not gonna forgive you, and I am gonna ask you a tough question. So I've been reading, right, and Mark might know some of those statistics that. Over the since the beginning of the year, because of this COVID, most companies, they just, the first thing they cut, right, when they do the cost controlling is marketing. They cut their investment. So only about 19% of all digital agencies globally are actually doing better than at the beginning of the year. Most of them, and including a similar percentage, about 20%, they actually dropped about 50% in business. So how do you respond to all of this, and how did you manage through all of this period, and how do you maintain the success of your digital agency?
So yeah, tough question.
Told you.
Yeah. First, the success of our agency, the current success of our agency is 100% the merit of our team. So basically the hard work they did, the dedication, and the fact that they didn't leave the boat and they were even more engaged in these times is their merit. And I want to use this opportunity to thank all of our colleagues, both from Infinite and Stefanini, from all of our group, for all their efforts to make us successful in these times. I'm going to answer your question with a quote from Alvin Toffler. It says, "The illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. Why am I saying this? Just to translate it for everybody. If you think you're good, you're dead. It's the same thing. So I think it's a main difference in approach. The companies that I saw that failed or dropped or really dropped business are the ones who did not accept the change. They held with both hands on the past. They pretended COVID doesn't exist. They pretended everything is normal. What COVID? Where's COVID? No, no, no. Everything is normal. We don't change the way we do business. This is how we've done for the past 10, 20 years. We don't change. And those are the ones who failed because they cling to something which doesn't exist anymore. So I think the best answer to this and what I saw that brings success, of course, success is not guaranteed, but what brings success usually is accepting is totally different. And you have to always be a student, always act like you're teachable. If you don't act and feel that you are teachable and you can learn, you fail, especially in these times. It's like, for example, trying to use, I don't know, a big iron ball to your foot. You use it for the wind, not to take you up, not my case ever, but to use it for the wind, not to take you up. And you use the same big iron ball to swim, to make a comparison. So that is
that doesn't work, does it? Yeah. Well, thank you, Alex. By the way, nice cat, and I have a nice cat there in the background. That having said, thank you all. I'd like to thank again to all the panelists, all the people everyone that presented. Great presentations. Thank you for your answers. Also, I would like to thank the audience for attending. And to wrap things up, I'll just give it, hand it back to the Forbes team. So thank you very much, everyone, and see you soon.
Yeah, hi guys. Nice to see you again. So we as I said before, we had a great lineup. Now you can see the great presentation we have, the great debates we have. I've noted I've taken some notes, and please see again. You can see again the show on our Facebook page, and we will provide you with all the info that you need about the presentation and so on and so on. But I will leave you with my couple of notes, and then I will ask Alex for his let's say wrap up to the event. From Mark Yates. He talked about the digital change imperative, using digital to flatten the recovery curve, and it's very important to ask ourselves the question. Now that we know that technology is important, what do we do with it? Now that we know that it is so important, and one specific information that I think it's very, very relevant is that when he had the presentation, it was a question: how should your C-suite change to best tackle the crisis? And usually, in my experience, the answer was number two: preserve cash and take fewer risks. Actually, no, the most of the people, most of the C-suite would invest in tech to handle volatile customers. So I think this is the main difference between any previous crisis and the situation that we are dealing with. From Gustavo, great learnings from building a SOC in the current environment. We've learned that the world is full of good intention, but some jobs are better left to the professional. And personal touch. We need to watch out for people called Dave or acting like he's Dave. And from Hugo Neomorni presentation, cybersecurity challenges in industrial environment, ask yourself the question: what would happen if you come to the office tomorrow and find that you cannot work on your computer at all? And very important, especially for the SMBs, in general, no company can protect themselves, so there is the need for partners like Stefanini. Nevertheless, from Alex and his digital transformation upside down, I've learned that you do not find change, do not fight change, and it's important to see the upside in anything, and we should be grateful that we learned in a couple of months what we would have learned in years. And nevertheless, from Peter and Ionuț and their digital workplace model, I've learned that it's important to deal with, let's say, the digital dexterity gap, and important stuff like digital coaching and exploring artificial intelligence. So these are my notes. Thank you very much. From my part, the presentation were very good. Alex, please wrap up with your conclusions.
So thank you very much, Ionuț, for the great conclusions. There was a lot of learning that happened here today, like I was saying. I think the key to success at the end of the day is always staying curious, always staying open to learning, and always being able to listen to other people's opinions about doing things. And if there's something that this whole situation has taught us, is that everything in a lot of aspects needs to be relearned from the scratch. And another one thing that I want to mention, I kept talking about sharing and co-creating and building together as a team. In our group, we are all about co-creating. We have co-creation in the tagline of the Stefanini group, actually, co-creating solutions for a better world. I also want to mention that I'm hoping to see everybody soon at next events that we are going to do together. And also I want to ask Bogdan to jump in a bit. Bogdan?
Yeah, so thank you very much, Alex. Thank you very much. Thank you all. I kind of said my piece. So again, I thank you for joining. I think we responded to a varied number of topics. There's a lot more that we can share with you all. But as Alex said, we're all about co-creation, and co-creation requires bringing people with various backgrounds, various skills, and levels within all organizations, and bringing them together to share what they know. It's important for marketing to learn about security as much as it is and learning that, if you make a simple website and you leave a door open, then you put your organization at risk. Just as important for business people to learn about all of the intricacies of IT, and the same for IT, right? To understand about the business. So with that said, thank you very much. That's all I had. So thank you, Forbes. Thank you, Stefanini Infinite, and all of the panels, IDC, Hugo, and also Gustavo. So thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Ionuț.
Thank you. This has been
Bye-bye.
Digital Hour of Power, co-creating for the new reality. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.